Well, welcome to another episode Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Patrick.
How's it going?
Patrick, how do you say your last name?
It is Teagle, like the bird, but with the letter T in the front.
Do you think of yourself like the bird?
Well, soaring maybe, but actually, all my social media handles are Teagle the Beagle. I don't know why, but
That is the best thing I've heard all day. I'm not going to lie. Teagle the Beagle.
Yeah, I've had that since I was like 13. I created like an Xbox Live username. Like since then, I've stuck with it. I don't see myself getting rid of it.
I still remember my first gamer tag. Do you want to know what it was?
What was it?
Rockheart125478.
Was that like a generated one?
No, that was one I made up because my whole family's plays an instrument. I'm the only one that didn't follow that path. So my dad was in a Kiss tribute band. My mom was in a Heart tribute band. My brother was like, "Oh, let me play Green Day, 311, and all this stuff." And then I'm like, "Well, rock is in my blood, so it's got to be pumping through my heart." And then they make you add a number, and I'm like, "I know one that's going to be extremely difficult for me to ever type in again, and that's 125478."
I said that like for whatever reason, my generated one was vinyl Les Paul. Like I don't know why it picked that, but it was like the most random thing. It was just like I ran that for like about a year, and then I like picked one. I was just like, okay, now I got to do one.
Can you imagine if people's actually I don't even say do you need to imagine, because I feel like people's names nowadays are becoming things that you would hear on like a gamer tag. Like when you said vinyl Les Paul, imagine that guy smokes a giant fat cigar and he dresses up in a tuxedo with really dark Ray-Bans on, and he's always hanging out by a light pole snapping his fingers.
And instead, it was just a 12-year-old.
I look at like, as soon as you said vinyl Les Paul, for some reason, my brain went denim, and then it just pictured Jay Leno in all denim clothing, where I'm like, that is the sketchiest trend. Like, how can you pull off all denim? That is so rare to do.
My AP bio teacher in high school, he wore like all denim, like denim pants, denim shirt and stuff, and it had a big old mustache and wore glasses. His name was Mr. Ford. One of my favorite teachers of all time because he was actually like a good teacher. But like, I mean, there's like four of us in the class who are like, they're friends of mine, and we like would dress up as Mr. Ford. Like, I mean, we all went to Walmart one day, found like denim shirts and stuff, put on mustaches. It was a good day.
That's the biggest anxiety I think you just brought me back to, was trying to figure out if I was going to have a good teacher or not. And I always kind of clarified if they had a fish tank in the classroom that it was going to be a bad teacher, because I feel like that's their I'm cool. And they just throw a fish tank in the room. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to be paying attention for the rest of this class because I want to look at Nemo over there. But then we had like a teacher with a snake. We had a teacher that all he did was play video games, where literally the whole class was watching him play Flight Simulator. And he was like, this teaches you about the aerodynamics of the wind and how it can shift changes in a flight pattern that can actually cause a disrupting thing to happen. You can end up like Tom Hanks in Castaway. I'm like, we're in fucking science class. This isn't flight school. But he was just like, I just bought it, so I check out this joystick. And then like he's like,
I don't have time to play at home because I got to grade your shit.
And then he's like, all right, quiz time. And I'm like, for what? What did we learn about science? I don't know a damn thing on the periodic table. I don't know anything. What is that word? What does the HE mean? Is that helium? I have no clue.
I think so, yeah. I didn't take chemistry. I wasn't very good at that.
So, Patrick, what do you do, or what do you want to talk about besides random?
I am a professional cook here in New Orleans, Louisiana. I cook for people. That's what I do.
Okay, I have strong feelings about. Did you say Louisiana or you say New Orleans?
I said New Orleans, Louisiana.
Okay.
Or I said New Orleans, but New Orleans, Louisiana.
Okay, I have strong feelings about New Orleans because I came across a Facebook video about people that are called ponyists. I don't know if you've ever heard about that.
New to me.
They dress up as ponies and they basically like it's like gimp masks and stuff, and they ride each other, and they do it like an Olympic dog game. You know where you see the dogs weaving in and out of the poles? Well, people do that, and that was in New Orleans where I was like, what? But then I also credit New Orleans for my all-time favorite band, 311.
Yeah. Is that like a offset of furries?
Yeah, but it's called Poniest, and it's an actual thing, and it's in your town.
That is weird. And I will correct you for at least if you want to make good with New Orleans, New Orleanians around here. It is New Orleans.
New Orleans.
Orleans. Yeah. It's the weirdest thing about this town is if you look at street signs and way they say stuff, it's off. Like if you there's what Burgundy wine, they say
Yeah.
Burgundy down here. Or like the calliope, like the piano thing, they say Calliope.
Well,
Like
I'm
they
from Baltimore, so when we talk, it's like Baltimore, and then we say Monday, Tuesday. And I'm like, where did we all get these accents? I didn't even know I had one until someone pointed it out. They're like, you have a really strong accent. What are you from, Boston? I'm like, why? But then we also like, I live in a beach town, so we get people from all over. And I had a person from Jersey that asked me how to pump their gas, and she was a 40-year-old woman.
my friend is she's from Oregon,
Yeah.
Portland, Oregon, and she said like for the longest time until I moved down here, I never pumped my gas, and that literally blew my mind.
Same thing she said. I looked at her, I was like, what? She's like, I'm from New Orleans, or God, I'm from New Jersey. And she goes, I don't know how to pump my own gas. And I said, what? She goes, it's illegal down there. I'm like, and I looked it up. There are two places in the world where it's still illegal to pump your own gas, at least in the States, is Oregon, and it's also New Jersey. And I'm like,
That's
is that an
wild.
entitlement thing? Like, what is that? Like, I feel like that's a big skill that you need to know. It's like not knowing how to use your oven, which I actually don't know how to do. So that's kind of why you're here to fill in that part for me.
Oh, this is a cooking class, not a podcast. Um, uh, I I don't know why that. I mean, that they said like they create it's for jobs and stuff, but like I mean, all right, if you think like how many gas stations are in say like a town of 100,000, like, and there's two attendants per thing, maybe I don't know. I don't.
I just look at like,
It's not
yeah,
like
that's a
it's not like a
skill you need to
colonialism
do.
thing or anything like that.
I just like that's a skill you need to have though. It's kind of like cooking. Like I mean, I've learned to just kind of use the microwave. I can use my stovetop pretty well. I'm mostly a can of like tuna. You know, if I do a chicken breast, I usually boil it. I think sometimes I can grill
Ooh,
it, but like using the oven is always so complicated. I remember someone will leave like chicken in the oven and it'll be like it'll turn off or it'll do this. And then the thing keeps
ooh, no,
beeping
no,
every
no,
10
no.
minutes. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not turning off. Like it's not. What do I do? What I hit cancel
It's
preheat?
not that smart. They're not. I mean, some are, but not mine in my shitty little apartment. Like it's not there. So cooking, cooking started, and it's been going since the dawn of time and stuff. It's just how you use fire to make food. If you look at it like that, and there's of course different types of heat and stuff. Like your microwave is using like weird ass radiation and stuff, or your stovetop is fire coming up and heating a pan, or like electricity or magnetism with induction burners or whatever. And your oven is just different types of heat. So there's considered like I just graduated culinary school, so I should be fresh on this. Two types of heat. There's moist heat, which is like say boiling, steaming, stuff like that, and there's dry heat, which is say in an oven or if you're pan searing something, there's no like liquid involved. So that's why it's considered dry heat cooking. Um, and it's just learning how to use how those work, like kind of the science of it and stuff. And it's interesting.
Well, as a chef, what's your or would you consider yourself a chef or a cook? Because those are two
At this stage,
classifications.
at this stage of my career, I'm a cook. I have not. I haven't. I actually haven't even. I'm applying to restaurants right now. Like I'm trying. I have a stage tomorrow at one here in town, but it's. I feel like to call my chef is like a disservice to those, or a slight towards the actual chefs who have come up in the years, have actually led and managed people, and You know, that I'm not there yet. I haven't done that.
When I
So
think of chef, I think of more like the executive in the kitchen, and then when I look at cook, I'm look at it's like he's the front lines guy that's got to make all the mass orders and make like the mass stuff. So usually, like if you get like a bulk order of things, like we need 100 of these, it's like that's a cook. He's the one that's going up. Let me hurry up and throw all this stuff on and create this giant
yeah,
mass order. And then a chef's more like we need one steak. It's like okay, I need to get this guy on it because he's very good at precising it down.
yeah, no, and that is true there to a degree. I think like anybody can be a cook. You can be a home cook, or you could be, Aunt Betsy, who is really good at feeding all the people during Thanksgiving. She's a really good cook. But I feel like, and even in like say fine dining restaurants, they're line cooks. Like those are the people who do everything. It's not like I'm, and chef is usually reserved for the title of like it's kind of it's management. Like there's sous chefs and executive chefs and chef de cuisine, but there's no line chef. Like no one called in the original brigade system, which was done by this old French guy named Augustus Escoffier, who designed like this system of like a pyramid of people basically. And but the thing is, you go to like banquets, people who like do just catering and banquets and stuff, and they're leading it, and they're chefs, and they're just as skilled as anyone who can do a la carte meals and stuff like that. So
I think
it's
cooking boils down. You like that? I used the word boil on that one.
I have
It goes down to more than just skill. I think too. It's also a passion for it because I can tell you right now, when they say make things with love, that's something you gotta really take into instance, and especially in the world
100%.
today, where people aren't really enjoying their food like they should. I would say it's more about
No,
like let me vacuum this up into my face and then get to the next thing. And I'm a person at fault for doing that. I've
I am
made the
too.
same meal every day for 8 years, and that's a can of tuna, a salad, or I'll switch it with a chicken breast or some fish. But it's all boiled. I just spice it up. I learned my whole spice cabinet. I think oregano on everything makes it taste like Domino's pizza crust.
That is
Cumin
true.
makes it taste like Taco Bell, and then spicy cayenne pepper I usually pour on some stuff with like a handful of dried cereal because I use that as my croutons. Yes, I've learned that way. But as a chef or a cook, whatever you want to say, you have a personal preference to how you like to cook and what you prefer to cook. Now, what is your preferred method and what is your preferred style?
That's we'll start style. I I gravitate towards Italian because that's what my family is. My mom is from Atlanta, and all of her family's from Ireland and Italy. So that's her, and she was the oldest of 5 kids. So like her mom was cooking all the time, and so she was able to kind of pass some of that stuff for me. And then my dad's from Louisiana, so I learned a lot of over the years, like some Cajun and Creole stuff. Um, so I gravitate towards that, but I can't say like I have my style yet because I love just experimenting, like picking up cookbooks and seeing like, ooh, that looks really fucking good. I want to try that. And like I'll make it, and if it's great, then I can try and like put my own twist on it or something, or sub out something with something local from here. Because I can't get it's just regionality. I can't get everything here with keep it like all super fresh. Um, Preferred method, that depends on the dish, man. It's one of those things that like, you know, you take a piece of steak and there's 8 different ways. Boiling is not going to be a really great method because that's just going to be gross as hell.
Well,
But
let's say you're tired after a long day and you just want food. You want to eat, but you're going to cook something. What was the first thing you turned to?
I turn to see if I usually try to keep some protein of some sort, be it shrimp, chicken, beef, something defrost, pork, something defrosting. I see what I have in there. And then if it's something quick, like I am not a snob when it comes to like cooking my own food. Like I will like do some fancy stuff or do some good techniques, but like open up a pack of ramen and just like adding some like fresh vegetables to it. Like I am not against that.
Yeah. I
Or
look
sometimes
well,
I'll just take pasta noodles and just do that.
what's interesting to me is something you mentioned about being from kind of like like a little bit of a big family and learning a lot about Italian cuisine and stuff is if you look at like the history of why that food was included into that household and why people in that household ate that way, foods like breads, foods like pasta, foods like rice, foods like a lot of carbs like potatoes and things like that are heavily
Yeah,
influenced into large families because of the matter of how cheap it is and how much you can get
exactly.
out of what you get. And that's what I think is important is all these experiences you have. Like you have a moment in your head right now of why the reason why you first really enjoyed cooking, whether somebody sat down and showed you it. What would you say your biggest influence was? Like where did you pick up and realize this is something I wanted to do? Did it happen in school? Did it happen just watching your mom in the kitchen?
Um, I mean, I would say at home because I saw that it was one of those things that we were able to bring. I mean, my family, we'd always host parties and stuff and have people over for football games or what have you. You know, we're just, and we'd cook for people. And people would come over and just like, oh, Eileen, that's my mom. The food's so good. Like, what do you do? Like, blah, 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 blah. And it was one of those things that I saw how happy it made people. So I would try and do stuff like, I'd learn to make eggs when I was young or French toast and start there. And I'd help mom with recipes and stuff. But like I never really thought of it, like even going into college, which I didn't finish, but then I went to work, like I started a career in banking of all things. It was just kind of the job available.
It's a big
And
dramatic shift from banking to cooking.
we'll get into that. It's one. So I started doing that. I did that for like 4 years, and I did stuff like at home for like my coworkers and stuff. Like kind of just oh, I'll make cookies one day or stuff like that, and bring it in or for potlucks. But then I had switched jobs, tried to go for more money, and I just didn't like it. Like I realized that this side it was like a more corporate structured bank, like a bigger bank and stuff, and I was just like I didn't love my manager for one thing, but like it was I did that little didn't love is actually kind for her. But I started looking at stuff like, okay, what can I do? And I just had a thought in my head like I love to cook, so I started researching like culinary schools, and I found one. I found the school I went to here in New Orleans, and it was just like duh, because it made sense. My parents met here after college, so I've been coming here since I was little. Like I've been. They always tell me like you've been climbing on the best bar stools in New Orleans since you were like 9. Just so it just made sense for me. Like I love it.
I really like you ever hear about how when a person tells a kid like, "Oh, you have so much to learn. I'm trying to show you this now so you don't have to find out later." They just start parting advice on you where you're just like,
Yeah,
"Oh, I get it, but it's just going right through in one ear, one out the other." Because when you're young, you just want to do whatever the hell you want to do. And I'm
you
not
want to make your own decisions. I think.
yeah, I'm not old or anything, but I think what's weird is my brain has completely aged from starting this podcast to where I'm at now, just with the amount of information I've kind of soaked up. And
Yeah,
before it was eating a meal to get done with it. Now I'm like, when I go out to eat, I'm like looking at the actual menu instead of being like, hey, let me get some fucking dinosaur nuggets and some French fries. Even though those are
yeah,
good or everything, but like I was always dumping honey mustard all over my food, drowning it basically, and putting ketchup
yeah,
on everything. But then, like, once I start going out and I'm like looking at the food, I'm actually sitting there and enjoying it, like one potato chip at a time. Like my grandma used to
right.
say to me, that used to go in my fucking ear and out the other. And I look at the world of like people that are just like they're literally shoving McDonald's fries into their mouth to where the fries are grabbing onto the outside of your mouth, like slow the fuck down. And
Yeah,
we're not enjoying the actual food, and it becomes really complicated because I know when everything started opening back up for a lot of people, everything was about going out to eat finally, but then even that's lost. Some of the best experiences I have ever had in my entire life have been going out to eat with my grandparents after a school week or something. I would go up there on the
yeah,
weekends. They lived about an hour away, and we would just go out to eat Applebee's, Fridays, anything, and it was fun.
yeah.
It was like you had stories, you had fun, you had conversation back before the era of the iPhone. It was a flip phone, so there was no games on your phone. And
No,
all that's getting lost now. And even with we talk about coming back and people now realizing what they lost, you're still focused on not fucking dying. because it's
Yeah.
like you're going out to a meal, you have to have all these precautions with a mask and all these things, which I get for good
Yeah.
purposes, but then you're losing the
Right.
aspect of what it means to have a meal together. And it really kind of hurts because I'm really hoping that home meals, those dinners you used to have with your family, the ones that ended up getting, like you talked about, a microwave or whatever with the radiation. I had a microwave as a kid that I used all the time to cook taquitos and hot pockets. Had a crack in it. It's
Nothing wrong
probably
with that.
well, it had a crack in it. Probably is where a lot of the problems that came in my head today come from. Because I would just sit there with my head on the counter and stare at your food rotating in there. And but you look at that. I had to make so many microwavable meals and learn how to survive with that stuff because both my parents worked two jobs. So it's the
Yeah.
aspect of essential time is getting replaced with trying to survive, and you're not enjoying these meals, these things, and being able to complement. I talked about a chef experience that I asked you about. My
Yeah.
first experience into whatever cooking is or whatever cooking was or why people could be passionate about it was when I was with my grandma. She made every single meal and stuff that I was like, this isn't taquitos. No, she's like, no,
Yeah.
this is food. This is actual, you're gonna have vegetables and shit. And
Mhm.
she was showing me how to she was making a cake, and she goes, hey, do you want to lick the beater or you want to lick the spoon? And she shows this little tiny
I.
spoon, and I'm like, I'll lick the beater, bro. Beater has more on it.
Mhm.
She goes, okay.
Yep.
Then she hands me the beater, and then she grabs the spoon and starts going all around the sides of the bowl, and she
Yeah.
goes,
You
there.
got played. Yeah.
I
Oh, my mom did that too.
whew. And I was like, but that really shows you, like, don't always choose the first option, you know what I mean? Sometimes
Yeah.
look around and really base your decisions on things.
One of the things that I think was important for me growing up, and I know not everyone has experience, but my mom, for most of my life, she was stay at home and stuff. So, and it was really important for her because it didn't happen. It was she had it growing up, but my dad didn't because of his family. And I mean, we every for most weeknights. I mean, probably 4 out of 5 times on the weeknights, we'd sit down and eat as a family, dinner together. I think that was really important because like you said, it's nowadays, and I think it's happened in the last like 20, 30 years with the advent of, fast food and stuff and how popular it's become, is because people are so, they think they're so pressed for time or rushed for time that they got to do things fast, 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 fast. Like they need instant gratification. They don't want to go sit down at even at like an Applebee's or Fridays or something. And have an hour dinner. Like they don't want to do that. They want to be able to like hop in their car, eat in their car, and go back home and do whatever they do. And it's sad, like you said.
Well, that puts more
Um,
pressure on you as a cook too, because the fact of like cooking is so intimate. I know when I get down into the kitchen, I don't want anybody crossing over me. It's so hard to be able to focus on your own thing when you have a million people running around you, especially when the kitchen's so hot too. But also, you're trying to
yeah,
create something good, and they're like, you need it out in 5 minutes. You need it out in 10 minutes. It's like, oh my God, I'm already like, how am I going to love to be able to do this if I'm being rushed? Which is why I give chefs and cooks and all these people that own businesses that deal with the restaurant industry so much credit because of the amount of things that go behind it that not everyone keeps into consideration.
which I think is, I'm lucky to be in the city like this where it has there such a illustrious fine dining background and stuff, and just food background in general. I mean, there's some of the oldest restaurants in the country here. And it's a lot of people, and granted, it is a lot of, well, I say that, but I mean, anyone from the old rich white man who lives on St. Charles, which is like, one of the nicest streets in the city. I mean, it has mansions all up and down it, to even like some of the people who live under the bridge. Like they know food. They know food. They know about it. They know how it should taste and everything. They're not. It's it's really a amazing thing, but they know that service and everything. They know there's a restaurant in the city called Galatoire's, which is one of the Grand Dames, and Friday lunch is a very important meal for them because you have to wear a jacket, and you have to, wear men must wear jackets, and you go in there, and lunches can take 2-3 hours because they're sitting there, they're drinking, they're having meals, like you order things one at a time, and you're taking time and having fun and talking, or just, and you're talking to a huge table. Some people dance around and talk to other tables. It's just it's a really magical experience. And I think that's where cooks, what they want, I mean, what we want to be, and chefs too, of course, we want to curate experiences. We want you, when you come into our restaurant or come into our home, we want you to have a memorable experience with food. Like, because we want it to taste good and we want you to remember it and just like, oh, wow, this is something I haven't tried before. Or this is the best damn cream spinach I've ever had. You know, just
You want to relate a
it's,
little bit to the people too. I think when you put your heart
yeah,
into it, you put a little bit of what you've learned into your food, and people are able to
you're
taste
putting your
that.
story on a plate.
Yeah. There's a guy in New Orleans I've had on the podcast who owns Southerns.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
love their chicken sandwich.
yeah, where he talked about the Richard Pryor. He was explaining to me about the whole bits and the things and the menu items that he had that were based off famous comedians, famous actors, and famous things.
Yeah.
When he was talking about the passion and the love for that, I was, I was inspired. I was like, holy crap, this makes me want to learn more. What is the Richard Pryor? What is all these other, what's the George Carlin? And he's explained to me all these amazing things and how he got there and what the experience and the story was behind it. I'm like, that's what you want to know. That's what you want to hear. And it's so hard because you look at businesses nowadays, when people say you want to go out to eat, they're thinking of a restaurant where you're not able to put a face behind the place. You're thinking of Ronald McDonald, or you're thinking of the Burger King. That's what everybody thinks of when they're like going out to eat. And then if they do go out, they think they need to wear a tux or go to a steakhouse. I'm like,
Yeah.
go to a fucking mom and pop shop place and enjoy the food. And don't even just enjoy the food, enjoy the experience. Go up there and ask. I always go up to a restaurant. I go, what do you like? And they say this, that, this is good. I'm like,
Yeah.
great, I'll take
Exactly.
that.
It's one of those things we, like going eating at a, like say kitchen that has like an open kitchen and stuff where you can watch it being made and you can see the process and the time it takes. Because some, I mean, in like a true like from scratch kitchen, like they're not, pulling shit out of a bag and like, reheating it. Like they're cooking things and they're taking the time to taste it and put it on a plate. And those dishes are a reflection of the head chef's career. Like that is them on a plate. Like I got to, at the end of our school, we usually do like this pop-up thing, but we couldn't do that because of COVID and stuff. So instead we got to go do a stage, which is like an externship, 2 days. And I went to this place called Palm and Pine. Shout out to Jordan and Morris. And like they're from Texas, they moved to New Orleans, and they did like casual fine dining, which so like fun plates. They're all wearing like t-shirts and Hawaiian shirts and fun stuff, but like it's this beautifully plated food with these like southern flavors, but like they say south and south of that. It's like Caribbean, Mexican, South American, stuff like that. And it was just this like he's from Texas, so there he did like this is a chorizo recipe I learned from my dad and stuff or something like that. And it was just incredible, the more connection you have with the food you're serving and the more proud you are of it, I think it's just the better it is, the better the product ends up being.
What would you say if you had to think of your guilty meal, like the one meal that's like, I would kill for anything like that. I would love to have that. What is it? What is one?
Um, I'd say like sometimes just like taking the time and just like splurging on like a nice big ass steak with some like really nice buttery potatoes and some Brussels sprouts. Like that's like if I want to like just bowl out in my home place, like that's a good thing for me. But it depends on if I'm hungover or not. Because sometimes just like a big ass greasy cheeseburger like will do the job for me. So
Maybe it's because I'm the type of guy that's like besides microwave and hot pockets or something, it was always breakfast food because I think that was the only thing my
yeah.
dad really knew how to cook besides like a burger. It was always like, we're having French toast for breakfast. I'm like, fuck. It's like, but when you're a kid, that's magical. That's like, oh my God,
Oh
we're
yeah,
having
no.
French toast.
Like Sunday breakfast when dad would or my mom would say like doing French toast or doing like pancakes, or she'd also do this thing called like a Dutch baby, which is like this giant ass pancake that you put in like a big old cast iron skillet. Those were like the best. And I mean, she's like, oh, we're gonna make our own like syrup, like which is basically just sugar, water, and lemon juice. And it was just like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And I'd
What
have
would
this giant like slice the size of a pizza, and I'd destroy it.
See, I have so what I'm gonna ask you what your best restaurant experience is. Not like one that you've worked in,
Mm-hmm.
but just one as like a kid or something going out to
Mm-hmm.
eat with your family. So I went with my grandma, not the one I was mentioning before that we always went on weekends, but I have another one in Baltimore. So she's about 3 hours away from where I live. So my dad would take me up there, like we're gonna see, she doesn't get to see you guys ever unless it's like Christmas. And so I'm gonna take you down there. You're gonna spend the week up there. So we go to like Six Flags when we go up there. But I remember the first night, she's like,
Nice.
"Where do you want to go to eat?" And I'm like, "Fucking Bat or Red Robin's." And she's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Endless bucket steak fries." She's like, "What?" We went there. All she did was spend $5 on me. She got herself like this nice fancy like steak or something. I got over and over and over again, kept refilling the same thing of fries, and that's all I ate. But I was 14, so I was like, that's sustenance to me. But that was such an amazing experience. She's like, "Oh my God." She's like, "All you're gonna eat is steak fries." I'm like, "What do you think we are getting? I told you endless steak fries." She's like, "I thought there would be vegetables or something." I'm like, "No, there's none of that in the menu."
Potatoes a vegetable. It's fine.
Yeah, it's just blank calories, carbs.
Um, best experience. There's I would say there's kind of two I look at, and one was like by myself, and it was just because it was at an early point in my career earlier this year. I had gotten my tax return, so I had like a little spending money. So I decided to treat myself to a nice dinner, and I went to a place called Nagami here, which is like a Japanese omakase style restaurant, which is means it's a curated like sushi experience, like what it boils down to. So like it was like 11 courses worth of like sushi and stuff. But like I went by myself and I told the it's a 12-seat restaurant. So you imagine it's like a bar and like he's doing everything right there. And I told the guys just like, yeah, I'm a culinary student, just like, oh, awesome. So like he would come by and tell me everything he was doing, like how he prepared it, and it was just and kept up with me, talked to me and stuff, and it was just for me that was like an eye-opening experience because it was a cuisine like of that like I've had sushi before, but not like that. Like that was something just crazy. So I remember that very fondly. And then there was a thanks it was a we went we had all of my mom's family down for Thanksgiving and we rented out a room at this nice restaurant in town. We had like 30 people in there. And I mean, we just all sat down, just had this great Thanksgiving and it just talked to each other, had drinks. Just, it was, well, I hadn't had an experience like that. And usually my dad doesn't like hanging out with my mom's family because, in-law stuff. But we all just had a great time. It was something really magical about that. I don't know.
I went to a Orioles game, and there was like I don't even know if you can consider it a restaurant. It was like a 3-story house, but it was one of those row homes where it was like the length of like the room was like you're in a hallway, like, and
Yeah.
it had stairs that went up like one of those like Harry Potter houses, the one that opens up like that, and there's like that hidden house. It was
Yeah.
like that. So it was 3 stories, and at the top it was just a restaurant. So there's a bar downstairs in the first one. Then everybody's like jam packed together. They only had enough to fit one table on the left wall and the other table on the right wall. Then there was a small walkway to go through, and we just sat in the corner and we just sat there, ate peanuts, and waited for the game to start. It was such a fun experience just talking, and like we're in
Yeah.
this terrible place where people are elbowing India and shit, and you're just like having fun because you're with your family. And
Yeah.
I look at what's your worst eating out experience? Because I have one that also is probably the one I remember the most. I went to in my town about like maybe a couple miles out, there's another little town called Berlin, and there used to be a place called Boomers, and they used to have like this milkshake diner type feel to it. And so you would walk in, and I remember it was the waitress was why it was the most traumatic experience of my life, because she wore so much makeup on her face where it looked like a mask that you could peel it off. And she handed me my cheesesteak sub, and I swear to God, I was just like, some of that makeup had to leak off into my sub. And my dad's like, "No, that's not what happened. Eat your cheesesteak, dude. It's $10." I'm like, but it's the clown from It. Like, I was like just so about that my mind just, I couldn't even focus on eating my food. But what's your worst experience?
We took a family trip up to Washington D.C. and we went to this like I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but it's like an old famous like place there, has a oyster bar, and we were sitting there, and I was probably 13. My brother was 8, or he was 9, I guess. Yeah. And so we went in there, and Dad it was a place where my dad, his cousin's from England. He loves English soccer and stuff. He's been over there, and he got a Guinness, and it's just like, have you ever tried one? Just like, no, I was 13. Like they had given me like sips and stuff. I wasn't like, obviously I wasn't drinking.
Don't
So
tell
like
your
they said like,
mother.
here, yeah. I mean, it was just like but we were in a public place. So just like, here, just sniff it. So I picked up the glass and I sniffed the beer, and our waiter was this big old Samoan dude. Like, I mean, he looked like he could play like nose guard for the Ravens. Like, I mean, just crazy. And he came over there in this loud, booming voice and just berated us. Like, he is a minor. We cannot be having people drinking alcohol. We could lose our just wow. And my dad, it, he is, um, he is a wordsmith. He can not, I mean, obviously I love my dad and I love him to death, but he can definitely use his words to make you feel like this. But
Yeah,
he was silent. But I could just tell, like, oh my god, I've seen this face before.
that's no good.
Like I had to, like it was just like, oh god, and he like, we were all just, and he went to go talk to the manager and stuff because obviously, and we we just sat in silence like for the most of the meal. Like it was just the most awkward situation I had ever been in at that point, like in public. Like, and I just didn't know. I know how mom was gonna react. I know how I was gonna react. Like it was just we were so tight, and I will remember that forever. Like
There are some moments though, like that's it kind of accepted though, because you don't, you feel like, oh my God, like that's a little bit dramatic to be freaking out if my kid just sniffed a beer. I mean, I get it behind the restaurant
he
side
thought
of it.
he was thinking that I was drinking it. I think, but nonetheless, like there's a way to do that by like saying like, hey, just like, hey,
Yeah.
you, sorry, he can't drink. He's 13, and just like, oh yeah, that's fine. But the yell and like in this huge 200-seat restaurant, but sound like a fucking opera singer.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what gets me though. Have you ever seen the movie Still Waiting
mm-mm,
with Ryan Reynolds?
I don't think so. No.
It's where it's like it has Dane Cook in it. It's a really good like kind of diner or restaurant movie. But a
Okay.
woman goes, "This steak is like too rare." And like did this whole thing where it's like, "Oh, that's a Karen." Like that's someone that's just like, "Oh, that's just I don't want to deal with that." So they take it in the back and say,
Yeah.
this lady is a total fucking bitch." And then the waitress gives them a thumbs down, and Dane Cook's like, "Maybe he wants some Fremunda cheese," and rubs this steak on his nuts and then throws it on the thing.
I've seen that clip. I know that clip you're talking about. I think
Is
it came on like Facebook or something. But
is
yeah,
that anything of true in some places?
in some places, yeah,
Oh
for
my
sure.
God. I
Like,
was like, why do you like that's the one thing my grandpa always told me about. Like he goes, because I remember like my food took like 55 minutes. And when I was a kid, I was so like, oh my God, 55 minutes is like 10 years. And it came finally, and I wanted to complain about it so bad because it was the wrong thing. They didn't do it right. So I had to send it
yeah,
back and then wait again. I'm like, oh my God, we gotta wait again. And my grandpa goes, dude, don't fuck with the people that make your food. And I go,
there is
"Mm."
there's a fine line between, I think, like if they got like 55 minutes is the longest time. Like that means their kitchen's in the weeds or something, or they're just taking their fucking time. Like that's
But it
you
was
have
a
every right to be.
55 minutes where you're like looking around, like people that sat down way after you were getting their food first. I'm like, how fucking hard is it to make a cheeseburger with French fries?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's yeah. I mean, if you, what did your grandpa say?
My grandpa was like, just don't fuck with the people that make your food. And then it finally came again. And I learned some humbleness. I don't think he really cared that much about trying to go after the waitress or waiter or whoever, because of the fact he had his food and he was enjoying it long before me. But he let me get some of it, which was nice. But it really put an aspect after I saw that movie. I was like, But it also goes down to the fact, like, even now when I go somewhere, if I wait an hour for food or something, I'll get hangry or get upset. But I'm like, it's all about that experience too when you're with someone, creating that with them. And
Yeah,
also when it does come, I just try and be like, hey, I understand how much pressure you guys are in. I mean, I live in a beach town, so everything's seafood and everything's busy, busy, busy down here. And I look
yeah,
at all these people that are serving, I'm like, you guys are doing one thing I could never do, which is be a chef, and which is can work in the restaurant industry. One, I'd be eating all the food, and two, it's the factor of like dealing with people all day. I work front desk at a gym, and I deal with some people that are like, I'm sick and tired of people not following protocol around here with the coronavirus. I'm like, what do you want me to do? Like, I can tell somebody to do it, but if I walk away, then they just take their mask off. What am I going to say? Like, I can't force a
right.
300-pound power lifter to put his mask on while he's deadlifting 800 pounds. Like, it's just not happening. And
No,
I just look at like a lot of people, they just want to complain. But I look at it like this is a craft and it is a passion. And the fact that if you're able to continue doing it with all of these things and all of these, I guess, really faults that make the industry so wrong. I mean, if you look at the restaurant industry, it is not an easy thing. It's not just making your food and then serving it to people. It is dealing with higher ups. It's dealing with people that got their own egos. It's dealing with heat 24/7, constant
yeah.
stress, constant overwhelming fear. And I wonder, with all that going on, how do you maintain? How do you try and, keep that a love?
I think there is a level of there the old what people consider like the old school way of like the European way of when what you see as Gordon Ramsay constantly yelling at you and shit like that, where that's the old people say it's the old way. I don't know if it's there because if someone does fuck up your food, like as if I'm like an exec and someone does do something wrong when they know how to if they know how to do it, then yeah, you're gonna be mad because that's money they've thrown down the trash. Like
Yeah.
you can't reuse it if you know, add too much shit or whatever. And with margins so tight, it is stressful. I think you have to you have to have the proper systems in place in order to make it enjoyable. But you have to really care about your employees. Like if you put them through all this shit and then like you just send them off and you don't check in on them, like then what's the fucking point?
It's like
It's one of
working
those.
for a corporation is so difficult for me. I used to work for Walmart like 5, 6 years ago, and I
Yeah,
lasted probably a few months, but I was just like, this is a thing where they don't really know me by a name. They know me by like a number or they know me by something. And it's not like I need someone to care about me as a business or as an owner of a place that I work for. Because I want to feel like, oh, you remembered my birthday. Oh, you
yeah,
remember this. And that creates positivity in the workplace. If you own a restaurant, what I give credit for is all the owners that are like, we're so personally connected into these people's lives. Like people that own food trucks, like my friend Bobby Dumont, he owns a food truck and he's like, I know all my work. I have 5 workers. It's not hard to keep track of. And I make sure everybody's doing
yeah,
good. I know about their family issues. It's the same thing we talk about teachers, good teachers, people that
yep,
check in on your students and get involved, let them know what's going on instead of just watching Forrest Gump all fucking day. That just gets
yeah.
annoying after a while.
It's one of those things that and also another thing is that if you're putting out food, I think people are proud of. Like and like this is doesn't maybe not applies as much to like say like your chain restaurants or stuff, but like in the world I want to work at, if your employees are putting out food that they're proud of, that they think like, yeah, I'm proud to serve this shit to my friends, my family, I want to talk about it, then that creates a sense of pride in you, and you want to put out the best thing, and you'll go through adversity, and you'll make it through a tough ass 5 hour shift or 6 hour shift or whatever, and it's one of those things that you just have to find your motivation for it. Like, why do you want to be here?
Your food is a
And
reflection of yourself, basically.
yeah, and it may be a reflection of the chefs, but like you're proud. Like at the end of the day, you're the one who plated it. You're the one who cooked it, and you have to be like I plated each and every one of these to the best of my abilities.
So if I had to ask you, what's the end goal? What do you want to see yourself in 5 years and 10 years?
Um, right now, all I really know are restaurants. Like, and that's what I'm good. I mean, I haven't worked in one yet. Like, I've worked for the school and I did like cooking classes and stuff like that and helped them with that. But I'm really just starting my journey. So I want to, no matter where I am, even if it's 5, 10, 20 years down the road, I want to continue to learn. Like, I want to learn as much as I can about this, in the cuisines and just the great food of the world, because food is something that connects all people, no matter what. For the most part, you and I can sit down at a table and talk and eat food. Like, and or even if I don't have the same language as you, I can eat food with you. So down the road, I think I would love to own my own place if that's in the books, or if I'm working in a hotel. I mean, that's cool too. Like doing banquets and weddings and stuff. I'm okay with that. I don't know though. It's kind of an exciting time for me.
It's definitely got some roads to choose from too. I think that's what we're all trying to do is figure out what we do, what we want
Yeah,
to do. But what we want to do turns out to be the one thing that was the initial spark in the first place. A little slight thing you came across when you're a kid, you end up turning back to it. Uh,
yeah.
but when it comes to the worst food in your mind, like one thing you're like, I don't want to eat that ever. What is it?
I'm always a proponent of trying everything once. Like that's a big thing for me. Like I don't like everything. Like I've had um like I say, like I don't like straight up liver like by itself, but like if you turn it into like pate or something and put it on like crusty bread, like yeah, I'll eat the shit out of that. But worst thing, mm,
I can tell you mine's brats. I hate Italian sausage.
now bratwurst is different than Italian sausage,
All right, then I hate brats because that's what it is,
right?
and that's what I know it by, and I'll never have it again. I was massively like ill when I was a kid, like for like a good weekend or something, and
Yeah.
my dad loves those things, and he was stinking up the whole house with it. So now whenever I smell it, I just get, I mean, to the
Was
point
he
where,
doing like the boiled, like the beer boiled
yeah.
brats and stuff? Yeah,
So
that will.
I
That's one of
was
my favorites.
out. That and grape chapstick is two things I hate because those were the two things I was experiencing when I was sick. Because I couldn't eat anything besides saltines. So what I was doing as a kid was I would put the chapstick on, lick my lips, and it was like eating. So I was like,
Whoa.
so I got sick massively from just that whole smell of it. So now, if, like someone made it in my house recently, and I was like, "Why do I have a huge headache?" And I come downstairs, the next thing I know, they're cooking brats. I'm like, "Why? Why do you do this to me?" It's like my kryptonite.
Yeah, those. There's some like boiled food. Like I don't. There's some things that work, but like some, it's not great. Like one of the things I remember was gross. I was sick at the time, but my mom made like macaroni and like hot dogs, and I don't know why, if it was just the brand of hot dogs she bought, but it just made me sicker to my stomach. And like I can't, like the only time I'll really ever eat hot dogs is like camping or like on the golf course or at a baseball game. Like those are like,
Ooh, nothing beats a campfire, dude. Anything cooked on a campfire, I'll tear up immediately. I don't really eat a whole lot of red meats, but dude, I'll tell you, I will tear up a burger. My dad taught me if you wrap it in tinfoil and put it over the fire, a nice corn on the cob that way, fuck, it captures that smoky flavor. We're like, where am I? Am I in heaven? Because this is it.
we always do. I was in Boy Scouts growing up, and we always did hobo. We call them hobo burgers because I mean we just throw all of your, we throw vegetables and everything into the tinfoil and just toss it on there and like wait like 10 minutes, and then like it steamed and was done, and you have your own bowl because of the tinfoil, and that's what we ate. And those were a lot of my cooking experience. I remember was my at least with like desserts and stuff, because my scoutmaster could make the shit out of some like Dutch oven cobbler. Oh, it was they were so good, and I don't know why. And I almost, like, I'm friends with him on Facebook, and I want to get his recipes from him because they were just incredible. I don't know why, but I gotta text him. I gotta write that down and text him.
Well, hey, look, Patrick, I appreciate you doing the podcast, man. Please, is there anything you want to promote your Instagram page?
Yeah, my Instagram page is Teagle the Beagle. That is like my last name, the Beagle. and support your local restaurants. You know, they're going through a really tough time right now. It's because people aren't going out. I mean, so go get takeout from your favorite place, or if you're able to, send them buy gift cards or send them a tip, or whatever you can do possible, do it, because you in the next 6 months the landscape is going to change a lot, and I hope it's not as severe as people think it's going to be.
And couldn't. And the ding means you're right. That's a sign from God. And no, but I appreciate you for doing the podcast, Patrick. And thank you for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank podcast. And stay tuned for our next episode.